The black scorpion waits like a piece of discarded armor half buried in sand, its body flattened and still, its surface absorbing the last heat of the day as the desert exhales into night. At first glance, the most prominent weapons are the pincers, thick, jointed and visibly powerful, held slightly open as if inviting a mistake. They frame the animal's silhouette and dominate the viewer's attention, but they are a misdirection. The real conversation is happening above the body, arched slowly over the back. A segmented tail ending in a curved stinger that glistens faintly even in low light. The pincers are the distraction. The tail is the negotiation. In this posture, the scorpion is not simply waiting. It is listening. The desert floor is a constant field of vibration, layered with information carried through sand and stone rather than air. Footsteps of insects, the scraping of beetle legs, the cautious hops of a wandering cricket, all transmit distinct signatures through the substrate. The black scorpion reads these vibrations with specialized sensory hairs and slit-like receptors embedded in its legs, organs tuned to detect minute pressure changes that would be meaningless to most animals. Vision plays a minor role here. The desert at night does not reward eyesight, it rewards sensitivity. By remaining motionless, the scorpion minimizes background noise and sharpens its perception, turning the ground itself into a sensory map. When prey enters this invisible radius, the scorpion does not rush. Energy is the most precious currency in arid environments, and wasted movement is punished quickly. Instead, the scorpion adjusts its posture by fractions, aligning its body so that the tail has a clear arc and the legs are positioned for stability. The strike, when it comes, is explosive and precise, driven by powerful muscles that contract in a fraction of a second. The stinger snaps downward, not blindly, but guided by a predictive calculation made from vibration, timing, and direction. In many cases, the prey never touches the pincers at all. The venom arrives first. This venom is often misunderstood as a weapon of pain, imagined primarily through its effect on large mammals. In reality, for the scorpion, venom is a tool of control. Producing it is metabolically expensive, and deploying it is a decision shaped by millions of years of selective pressure. Against small arthropods, insects, spiders, and other scorpions, the venom functions as a rapid immobilizer. Neurotoxins disrupt nerve signaling, shutting down muscle coordination and preventing struggle. This is not about cruelty or spectacle, it is about efficiency. A struggling prey item can injure the scorpion or escape, both outcomes representing unacceptable energy loss. Venom ensures the encounter ends quickly and predictably. Interestingly, scorpions modulate how much venom they inject. Studies of sting behavior show that dry stings or low-volume envenomations are common when prey is weak or already compromised. Full venom doses are reserved for prey that poses a risk or requires immediate immobilization. This level of control reveals an animal finely attuned to its own physiological limits. In the desert, where meals may be separated by days or even weeks, conserving venom can be as important as conserving water. The black scorpion is not an indiscriminate killer, it is an economist. Once the prey is subdued, the pincers finally reveal their purpose. They are not primarily weapons, but tools for manipulation. The chelae grip, rotate, and position the prey so that the mouthparts can begin external digestion. Enzymes break down tissues before ingestion, allowing the scorpion to extract maximum nutritional value from a single capture. Nothing is rushed. Feeding may take hours, with the scorpion remaining partially buried, reducing exposure to predators and limiting water loss through respiration. This entire process is shaped by the desert's unforgiving constraints. High daytime temperatures force the scorpion into a nocturnal lifestyle, emerging only when the sand cools enough to prevent overheating. Its exoskeleton reflects and retains heat strategically, allowing it to function during temperature swings that would incapacitate less adapted animals. Water conservation is achieved not through drinking, but through metabolic efficiency. Moisture is derived almost entirely from prey, and waste is excreted in a form that minimizes water loss. Even respiration is carefully regulated, with spiracles opening only when necessary. Predators exist even for this armored hunter. Owls, small mammals, and specialized insects can prey on scorpions, forcing them to rely on camouflage and stillness as their first line of defense. The black coloration, often associated with danger, also serves a practical purpose, blending seamlessly with shadows and basalt-rich sands. Under ultraviolet light, the scorpion's body fluoresces, a trait whose exact function remains debated, but which may help the animal detect ambient light levels or protect against solar radiation. Whatever its origin, it is another reminder that even well-studied animals retain mysteries. The scorpion's life is defined by patience rather than speed, by precision rather than strength. It does not chase prey across dunes or engage in prolonged combat. Instead, it waits, senses, calculates, and resolves encounters with minimal expenditure. This strategy is not accidental. Deserts reward organisms that can do more with less, that can survive long intervals of scarcity punctuated by brief opportunities. Over evolutionary time, this pressure has sculpted predators that resemble living machines, stripped of excess and optimized for function. In this context, the black scorpion becomes more than a symbol of danger. It is a case study in energy efficiency, an animal whose entire existence revolves around conserving resources while maintaining absolute readiness. Every anatomical feature, from the sensitivity of its legs to the curvature of its stinger, reflects a compromise between cost and benefit. Pain, when it occurs, is incidental, a byproduct of a system designed not to harm large animals, but to control small ones with certainty. As night deepens and the desert cools further, the scorpion resumes its stillness, half submerged, tail poised, world reduced to vibrations and timing. It does not need speed, numbers, or brute force. In a landscape where excess is punished and restraint is rewarded, the black scorpion represents one of evolution's most refined answers. An energy-efficient killer, perfectly tuned to a harsh and silent world. The wasp enters the frame already airborne, its body held rigid as if suspended by intention rather than muscle, wings vibrating so rapidly that their motion dissolves into a soft blur. Unlike the wandering drift of a butterfly or the heavy, audible flight of a beetle, this movement is controlled, economical, and alert. The head tracks forward, antennae angled slightly downward, sampling chemical traces in the air with the precision of laboratory instruments. Everything about the wasp's posture suggests purpose. This is not an animal stumbling through its environment. It is operating within it, continuously assessing, correcting, and preparing. Seen up close, the anatomy tells a different story than fear alone suggests. The narrow waist that gives wasps their distinctive silhouette is not a weakness, but a hinge, allowing the abdomen to flex with extraordinary range. This flexibility is essential for the sting, a structure often compared to a hypodermic needle not for drama, but for accuracy. The sting is smooth, unbarbed, and retractable, engineered for repeated use rather than sacrifice. Muscles at its base drive it forward with speed measured in fractions of a second, fast enough to penetrate cuticle, skin, or scale before the target can respond. This is not brute force, it is surgical delivery, yet the wasp does not sting indiscriminately. One of the most persistent myths surrounding wasps is that they are chaotic aggressors, lashing out at anything that moves. In reality, their behavior is governed by context, internal state, and environmental cues. A hunting wasp operates under a very different set of rules than a defensive one. When hunting, the wasp's attention narrows. Visual motion, prey-specific odors, and shape recognition guide its flight. Small insects are intercepted mid-air or plucked from leaves with brief, decisive contact. The sting, in these cases, is a tool of paralysis rather than pain, delivering venom that disrupts neuromuscular signaling and leaves the prey alive but immobilized. This ensures freshness, preventing decomposition while the prey is transported or stored. Defense, however, is another mode entirely, and the transition between these states can be rapid. A wasp defending itself or its nest responds not to prey cues, but to threat indicators. Sudden movements, vibrations near the nest, carbon dioxide in breath, and specific visual patterns all act as triggers. These signals do not provoke confusion, but clarity. Once the threshold is crossed, the wasp escalates with remarkable speed. The body angle shifts, flight becomes direct, and the sting is deployed not as a precision tool for a single target, but as a warning amplified through pain. The venom itself reflects this dual purpose. Composed of a complex mixture of peptides, enzymes, and amines, it serves different functions depending on dosage and context. In prey, it causes rapid paralysis. In vertebrates, it triggers intense pain, inflammation, and immune response. This pain is not accidental. From an evolutionary perspective, it is a broadcast signal designed to be remembered. Animals that survive a wasp sting are far less likely to repeat the behavior that caused it, reducing future threats to the colony. The venom is, in effect, educational. What makes the wasp especially formidable is not the sting alone, but the speed at which consequences cascade. A single sting can release alarm pheromones, invisible chemical signals that spread through the air faster than sound. These pheromones do not simply attract nearby wasps, they prime them. Individuals that detect the signal shift instantly into defensive mode, even if they have not perceived the original threat. What begins as a localized interaction becomes a distributed response, with multiple wasps converging on the same target, guided by shared chemical information. This is where the wasp's reputation transforms from nuisance to serious ecological force. Colony defense is not additive, it is multiplicative. Each additional wasp increases not only the number of stings possible, but the intensity and persistence of the attack. The target becomes marked, continuously highlighted by pheromones that renew with every strike. Movement does not confuse the wasps, it sharpens their focus. The swarm adjusts dynamically, individuals rotating in and out, some stinging while others hover, assess, and prepare. The coordination emerges not from central control, but from simple rules followed by every member, producing complex and effective collective behavior. Inside the nest, this defensive capacity is supported by rigid social structure. Workers specialize in tasks that shift with age and need, from foraging to brood care to defense. The nest itself, constructed from chewed plant fibers and saliva, is more than shelter. It is a chemical hub, saturated with colony-specific scents that reinforce identity and cohesion. Any intrusion into this space is immediately recognized as foreign. The response is not emotional, but algorithmic, shaped by evolutionary pressure to protect the reproductive core of the colony at all costs. Despite their fearsome image, wasps play a critical role in regulating ecosystems. As predators, they suppress populations of herbivorous insects that might otherwise overwhelm vegetation. As scavengers, some species recycle nutrients by feeding on carrion and waste. Their interactions ripple outward, influencing plant health, insect diversity, and even soil composition. Removing wasps from an ecosystem does not create calm, it creates imbalance. The irony is that most negative encounters between humans and wasps occur not because the wasps are hunting or defending their colony, but because their sensory world overlaps awkwardly with ours. A picnic table becomes a feeding site, a lawnmower becomes a seismic event, a hand wave mimics the motion of a predator. The wasp reacts not with malice, but with logic, responding to stimuli that, in its evolutionary history, have always preceded danger. Understanding this does not remove the pain of a sting, but it reframes it. The wasp is not random, it is consistent, predictable, and deeply optimized for its role. Its sting is not a temper tantrum, but a calibrated response delivered through one of the most efficient biological injection systems in the natural world. As daylight fades and temperatures soften, wasps return to their nests, bodies brushing past one another in tight aerial choreography. The colony hums with low-level activity, each individual a node in a living network, alert even at rest. Somewhere nearby, a single wasp patrols the perimeter, wings steady, antennae sweeping the air. Alone, it is a precise and capable surgeon. Together they are something else entirely, a reminder that in nature, escalation is often not loud or gradual, but instant, collective, and decisive. The shield bug does not flee when approached. It remains anchored to the surface of a leaf, its body broad and flattened, legs braced not for escape but for stability. From above, it resembles a living plate of enamel, edges sharply defined, colors arranged in deliberate contrast. Greens clash with reds, blacks cut across yellows, patterns that seem excessive in a world where camouflage often decides survival. This is not carelessness, it is a message. In the crowded, intimate scale of the insect world, where most encounters begin at distances shorter than a body length, visibility is not a liability when it is paired with consequence. The shield bug's defense begins long before physical contact. Predators that rely on vision, such as birds, lizards, or mantises, process color and pattern as part of a learned catalog of experience. Bold markings function as visual shorthand, compressing complex chemical information into an instantly recognizable warning. This strategy, known as aposematism, only works when the signal is honest. For shield bugs, honesty is guaranteed by chemistry. Behind the rigid plates of the thorax lies a reservoir of volatile compounds, stored and ready, waiting not for pursuit, but for pressure. Speed would be wasted here. The shield bug does not outrun threats because it does not need to. Instead, it allows predators to come close enough that retreat is no longer an option. In this micro-world, everything is nose first. Antennae probe before jaws snap, mandibles test before they bite. This intimacy favors chemical defense over distance weapons. When touched or grasped, the shield bug releases a spray of noxious compounds from specialized scent glands located along the sides of its body. The discharge is not explosive, but targeted, aimed precisely where the predator's sensory organs are most vulnerable. The chemistry itself is complex and varies among species, but the effect is remarkably consistent. Aldehydes and other reactive molecules flood the predator's chemoreceptors, overwhelming taste and smell simultaneously. To a bird, the sensation is bitter and acrid, triggering immediate rejection. To an insect predator, it can be disorienting or even temporarily disabling. Crucially, the learning is fast. A single encounter is often enough. The predator does not need to be injured. It only needs to associate the visual pattern with the unpleasant experience. From that moment on, recognition replaces trial. This is the true power of the shield bug's defense. It does not aim to win every encounter. It aims to eliminate future ones. The first predator that tests the signal becomes the messenger, carrying the lesson forward through avoidance behavior. Over time, this creates a stable truce. The shield bug remains visible, and predators redirect their attention elsewhere. Energy is saved on both sides. The system works because the cost of ignoring the warning is higher than the cost of heeding it. At close range, the mechanics of this interaction reveal just how finely tuned the shield bug is to its ecological context. Many of its predators do not strike blindly. They approach slowly, sampling air currents, extending mouthparts or antennae to gather chemical information. The shield bug's compounds are volatile, spreading quickly through still air. A predator that pauses too close may detect the chemicals before contact, triggering hesitation or retreat. This early release acts as a preemptive defense, reducing the need for physical struggle. In cases where contact does occur, the shield bug's flattened shape and rigid exoskeleton make it difficult to grasp securely, buying time for chemical deterrence to take effect. The shield bug's reliance on chemistry also shapes its behavior and life history. It often feeds openly on plant sap, inserting its mouthparts into stems or leaves and remaining stationary for long periods. This feeding strategy would be dangerous without a strong deterrent, as immobility increases exposure. The chemical defense compensates, allowing the insect to exploit resources without constant movement. Even its waste products can carry trace odors, reinforcing the warning signal in the immediate environment. For young shield bugs, the lesson begins early. Nymphs often cluster together on host plants, their combined chemical output creating a stronger deterrent than any individual could manage alone. This grouping behavior increases survival during vulnerable developmental stages and accelerates predator learning. A predator encountering a cluster receives a concentrated dose of the chemical message, making the association between appearance and consequence unmistakable. Over time, this selective pressure reinforces bold coloration, pushing patterns toward higher contrast and greater visibility. To human senses, these colors can seem decorative, even beautiful, but in evolutionary terms, they are functional graphics, the biological equivalent of hazard signs. Bright reds and yellows stand out against green foliage, ensuring that the warning is not lost in visual noise. The goal is not subtlety, but clarity. In ecosystems dense with life, where mistakes are frequent and costly, clarity saves lives. There is a quiet irony in how this strategy plays out. The shield bug, often dismissed as slow or defenseless, exerts control over its environment through information rather than force. It shapes predator behavior not by escaping, but by teaching. Each successful deterrence reinforces the system, reducing the likelihood of future attacks. Over generations, this feedback loop stabilizes relationships within the food web, influencing which predators thrive and which adapt their diets. As sunlight shifts across the leaf and the shield bug remains motionless, its presence alters the decisions of unseen observers. A bird glances, recognizes the pattern, and moves on. An ant approaches, samples the air, and redirects its path. No chase occurs. No struggle is recorded, yet survival is achieved through a language written in color and chemistry. In a world where speed and strength often dominate narratives of survival, the shield bug offers a different lesson. Defense does not always mean escape. Sometimes it means standing still and making sure the warning is impossible to ignore. In the microworld, where encounters happen at the scale of breath and touch, chemical truth travels faster than legs ever could. The red cotton bug is visible long before it is understood. Against the muted browns of soil or the dusty greens of roadside vegetation, its body announces itself in blocks of saturated color. Deep crimson, interrupted by sharp black markings that refuse to blend into the background. This is not accidental exposure. It is deliberate signaling. In ecosystems where concealment is often the default strategy, the red cotton bug moves through daylight as if daring attention, walking openly across leaves, stems, and seed pods with no attempt to hide. The message it broadcasts is simple and uncompromising. Eating this will be a mistake. This strategy, known as aposematic coloration, functions only when backed by consequence. Bright colors alone do nothing unless predators learn that they correlate with something unpleasant, harmful, or costly. The red cotton bug does not rely on venom or speed to enforce this lesson. Instead, it uses chemistry, borrowed from the very plants it feeds on. By tapping into toxic plant compounds and incorporating them into its own body, the bug transforms itself into a mobile warning label, carrying the chemical memory of danger wherever it goes. The feeding behavior that makes this possible is slow and methodical. Using piercing mouthparts, the red cotton bug inserts its stylet into seeds and plant tissues rich in defensive chemicals, particularly those produced by plants that evolved to deter herbivory. These compounds are not neutralized or broken down, they are sequestered. Stored within the bug's tissues, they remain biologically active, altering the taste and sometimes the smell of the insect itself. What the plant created to defend against being eaten becomes, through theft, the insect's own armor. This form of chemical appropriation reshapes the predator-prey relationship in subtle ways. Predators encountering the red cotton bug do not face immediate injury. Instead, they experience something worse from an evolutionary perspective, a deeply unpleasant sensory memory. The taste is bitter, acrid, sometimes nauseating, triggering rapid rejection. Birds spit the bug out. Reptiles shake their heads and retreat. Insect predators disengage after brief contact. The bug survives not by escaping the encounter, but by making sure it is remembered. Learning is the central currency here. A predator does not need to die or even suffer lasting harm. It only needs to associate the color pattern with the experience. Once that connection is formed, the red cotton bug gains long-term protection. Future encounters are avoided altogether. The cost of the first mistake pays dividends for the rest of the bug's life and often for the lives of others sharing the same pattern. Over time, this selective pressure sharpens the clarity of the signal. Colors become bolder, contrasts become stronger. Forgettable designs are eliminated by predation, leaving only those that leave a lasting impression. This process explains why the red cotton bug can afford to move slowly and feed openly. Its survival does not depend on avoiding detection, but on being detected and rejected. In a way, it depends on predator curiosity. A cautious predator that never tests new prey learns nothing. The system relies on occasional mistakes, on inexperienced juveniles or opportunistic feeders that sample before knowing better. These moments of error reinforce the visual code across the ecosystem. The chemistry inside the bug does more than taste bad. In some cases, the stored compounds are released as subtle deterrent signals even before contact. Predators with sensitive chemoreception may detect faint odors that confirm what the colors already suggest. At close range, this combination of visual and chemical information forms a multi-layered warning system. Vision attracts attention. Chemistry delivers the verdict. This dual signaling is especially effective in the crowded micro-world, where encounters happen at close quarters. Many predators approach prey head first, relying on smell and taste to confirm edibility. By the time contact is made, the red cotton bug's defense has already succeeded. The predator's sensory systems are flooded with information that contradicts the initial assumption that bright, slow-moving insects are easy meals. The lesson is immediate and memorable. What makes this strategy particularly effective is that it turns the predator's own learning ability into a weapon. Intelligence, often framed as an advantage, becomes a liability when paired with unforgettable mistakes. The more capable a predator is at learning, the faster it avoids the red cotton bug in the future. Over generations, this creates stable avoidance patterns within predator populations, allowing the bug to persist with minimal direct conflict. The ecological ripple effects extend beyond the bug itself. By safely exploiting toxic plants, the red cotton bug occupies a niche that would otherwise be inaccessible. It reduces competition for resources, feeding where other insects cannot. In doing so, it influences plant reproduction and seed dispersal, subtly shaping vegetation patterns in its habitat. Its presence becomes part of a larger chemical economy, where toxins are not simply deterrents, but transferable assets moving through the food web. There is a harsh lesson embedded in this system for animals that attempt the opposite strategy. Looking edible can be dangerous. Many insects rely on camouflage or mimicry that suggests vulnerability or neutrality. But this requires constant precision. Any failure to blend in can result in immediate consumption. The red cotton bug rejects this gamble entirely. It chooses memorability over invisibility, betting that being recognized is safer than being overlooked. This is why predators that encounter red cotton bugs rarely make the same mistake twice. The cost of curiosity is too high relative to the reward. Even when hunger pressures predators to take risks, the memory of that bitter encounter lingers, shaping decisions long after the initial taste has faded. As the sun moves across the landscape and the red cotton bug continues its slow traversal of plant stems and seed heads, it does so without urgency. Its confidence is not bravado. It is the product of a system refined over evolutionary time, one that leverages plant chemistry, predator psychology, and visual communication into a cohesive survival strategy. In a world filled with organisms that struggle to disappear, the red cotton bug survives by doing the opposite. It becomes impossible to forget. And in ecosystems where one bad decision can mean death, being unforgettable is often the strongest defense of all. Firebugs gather where sunlight lingers, assembling on warm stone walls, tree trunks, and the exposed roots of old plants, as if drawn by a shared instinct rather than chance. Their bodies form tight mosaics of red and black, individual outlines dissolving into a single shifting pattern. From a distance, the cluster looks less like a collection of insects and more like a warning painted directly onto the landscape. Nothing about their presence suggests secrecy. They do not scatter at the approach of footsteps. They do not retreat into crevices or leaf litter. Instead, they remain in place, broadcasting themselves openly in full view of the world. This strategy runs counter to one of the most common assumptions about survival. Most small animals avoid attention, relying on camouflage, speed, or silence to stay alive. Firebugs do the opposite. They aggregate in groups large enough to be unmistakable, amplifying their colors until the visual signal becomes impossible to ignore. Red and black are not decorative here. They are evolutionary punctuation, signaling danger, distaste, or consequence. In doing so, firebugs turn visibility into a shield. The power of this approach lies in how predators perceive risk. A single firebug might be tested by a curious bird or lizard, its fate uncertain. A cluster, however, presents a more complicated problem. The overlapping bodies create visual confusion, making it difficult for a predator to isolate one target. Movement within the group blurs individual boundaries, disrupting the predator's ability to focus. What appears to be an easy meal becomes a puzzle, one that demands closer inspection. That inspection carries a cost. Firebugs are chemically defended, producing compounds that make them unpalatable or irritating to consume. When a predator does attempt to sample one, the result is immediate regret. The taste is unpleasant, the sensation lingering. In some cases, the predator releases the insect almost instantly. In others, the encounter escalates into a lesson learned through discomfort. Either way, the association forms quickly. Red and black, clustered together, now means something to avoid. Clustering enhances this learning process. A predator that makes a mistake with one firebug is not done. The surrounding insects remain, reinforcing the visual signal even as the predator retreats. The environment itself becomes marked by that experience. A wall or tree that once seemed neutral now carries the memory of that encounter. Over time, predators learn not just to avoid individual firebugs, but the contexts in which they appear. This reduces the frequency of attacks and stabilizes the population. There is also safety in numbers at a chemical level. When disturbed, firebugs can release defensive compounds into the immediate area. In a group, these chemicals accumulate, creating a localized deterrent zone. The air around the cluster becomes infused with warning, detectable to predators with sensitive chemoreception. Even without physical contact, the message is delivered. The insects remain untouched, their defense effective before any bite or grasp occurs. The ecological benefits of such obviousness extend beyond predator deterrence. Firebugs often feed on seeds and plant matter in open areas where concealment is limited. By grouping together, they reduce individual vulnerability while exploiting resources efficiently. The group also helps regulate body temperature. Clustering allows firebugs to absorb and retain heat from sun-warmed surfaces, maintaining metabolic function during cooler periods. This shared thermoregulation supports activity when solitary insects might be forced into inactivity. Young firebugs adopt this strategy early. Nymphs are often found in dense groups, their coloration already vivid despite their small size. This early clustering accelerates predator education, ensuring that even inexperienced predators encounter the warning signal in its most concentrated form. The cost of attacking a group is higher than the cost of attacking an individual, making avoidance the rational choice. There is a subtle irony in how this system operates. By making themselves obvious, firebugs reduce the need for constant vigilance. They do not waste energy on escape responses that may never succeed. Instead, they invest in being unmistakable. This shifts the burden of decision-making onto the predator. The predator must choose whether to risk another unpleasant experience. Most choose not to. From an evolutionary perspective, this is a negotiation rather than a battle. Firebugs are not invincible. Their defenses do not kill predators outright. They simply make the interaction unprofitable. Over time, natural selection favors predators that recognize and respect the signal, while firebugs that best communicate their unpalatability are more likely to survive and reproduce. The result is a stable system where conflict is minimized through information rather than force. As the day warms and the cluster remains in place, the firebugs continue their quiet broadcast. They feed, bask, and interact with one another, unhurried by the presence of potential threats. The message has already been sent. Any predator watching from a distance sees not opportunity, but risk. In ecosystems filled with hidden dangers and fleeting prey, firebugs succeed by flipping the script. They do not disappear. They announce themselves. They survive not by outrunning curiosity, but by ensuring that curiosity ends in regret. For predators, the lesson is simple and lasting. Some meals are memorable for all the wrong reasons. The ladybug arrives softly, settling onto a leaf with the gentle precision of something that has never needed to rush. Its body is a perfect dome, smooth and symmetrical, painted in colors that seem almost deliberately charming. Red, orange, or yellow backgrounds are punctuated by neat black dots, a pattern so familiar that it triggers an instinctive response in larger animals, including humans. This is harmless. This is friendly. This is safe. The reaction is immediate and deeply ingrained, shaped by stories, symbols, and childhood associations. But in the ecological reality of the meadow, that assumption is exactly what the ladybug exploits. Beneath the polished shell lies armor. The rounded shape is not aesthetic coincidence, but mechanical design. A dome distributes force efficiently, deflecting bites and pressure away from vulnerable joints. Predators that attempt to crush the ladybug between mandibles or beaks find that their grip slips, their leverage fails, and the insect remains intact. The smooth curvature denies purchase, turning what looks like a soft target into a compact shield. This alone would improve survival. But the ladybug's real defense begins when contact escalates from curiosity to threat. When disturbed, grasped, or even pressed too firmly, the ladybug activates a response known as reflex bleeding. From the joints of its legs, tiny droplets of yellowish fluid emerge, seeping outward in slow beads. This is not blood in the mammalian sense, but hemolymph infused with toxic alkaloids. The release is deliberate and controlled, triggered by mechanical stress. The fluid coats the insect's surface and transfers easily to anything touching it. For a predator, the experience is immediate and deeply unpleasant. The taste is bitter, sharp, and persistent. Birds that bite down recoil almost instantly, wiping their beaks against branches or leaves in an effort to remove the sensation. Small mammals spit the insect out. Insect predators disengage, sometimes grooming their mouthparts repeatedly afterward. The defense does not need to kill or injure. It only needs to disgust. In the evolutionary economy of survival, inducing regret is often more effective than inflicting harm. This chemical defense works precisely because it violates expectations. The ladybug looks approachable. Its slow movement and bright colors suggest vulnerability. When that assumption collapses into an unpleasant sensory overload, the contrast makes the lesson stronger. Predators remember not just the taste, but the surprise. The memory becomes anchored to the visual pattern, the rounded shape, the dots. From that moment on, recognition replaces experimentation. Learning is central to how this defense scales beyond the individual. A young bird that samples a ladybug once is unlikely to repeat the mistake. That single encounter reshapes future behavior, redirecting foraging efforts toward less memorable prey. Over time, this creates predator populations that instinctively avoid ladybugs without needing to test them again. The cost is paid once, and the benefit persists across seasons. The ladybug's coloration reinforces this training. Bright colors in nature often signal danger or toxicity, but the ladybug's palette is unusually friendly to human eyes. This mismatch highlights an important truth about warning signals. They are not designed for us. They are tuned to the sensory systems of predators that evolved alongside them. To a bird, those colors stand out sharply against foliage, broadcasting visibility and confidence. The dots add contrast, breaking up the body outline while simultaneously making it more distinctive. It is a pattern built to be recognized quickly and remembered longer. Even the way the ladybug moves contributes to this strategy. It does not dart or flee at the first sign of danger. Instead, it often remains still, allowing its defenses to do the work. This stillness invites contact, accelerating the learning process. The insect does not chase predators away. It teaches them. At close range, the micro-world becomes intensely personal. Predators rely heavily on taste and smell when assessing prey. The ladybug's reflex bleeding targets exactly those senses. The hemolymph contains compounds that linger, ensuring the experience does not fade quickly. In some cases, predators associate not just the insect, but the plant or location where the encounter occurred with the unpleasant memory, extending the ladybug's protection beyond its own body. There is also an energetic advantage to this approach. Reflex bleeding is costly, but far less so than constant escape behavior or physical combat. The ladybug releases only small amounts of fluid, conserving resources while achieving maximum effect. Once the predator retreats, the insect can clean itself and resume normal activity. The dome-shaped shell helps limit fluid loss, preventing excessive exposure. This strategy aligns perfectly with the ladybug's ecological role. Many species feed heavily on aphids and other soft-bodied plant pests, often in exposed locations like the undersides of leaves or open stems. Speed would offer little advantage here. What matters is persistence and protection. By deterring predators rather than outrunning them, the ladybug can remain in productive feeding areas for long periods, reducing energy expenditure while maximizing intake. Ironically, the very traits that make ladybugs popular with humans are the same traits that warn predators away. The appeal is accidental, a side effect of a defense system honed by natural selection rather than aesthetics. To us, the dots are charming. To a predator, they are a reminder of a mistake. Over evolutionary time, this has led to an unusual outcome. Ladybugs can afford to be seen. They do not need to vanish into the background or rely on night cover. Their safety is carried on their backs and in their joints, ready to deploy at the slightest provocation. This freedom shapes their behavior, allowing them to occupy niches that would be dangerous for less protected insects. As the ladybug continues its slow crawl across the leaf, sunlight glinting off its curved shell, it appears almost decorative, a living emblem rather than a combatant. But that impression dissolves the moment curiosity turns to contact. What looks like a gentle, harmless insect becomes a chemical lesson in restraint. In the end, the ladybug's survival strategy is a quiet inversion of expectation. It does not intimidate with spikes or threaten with speed. It invites approach, then rewrites the outcome. That cute dot-patterned shell is not an invitation. It is a label, clearly printed, advertising that this is not food, not worth the trouble, not to be touched. In the natural world, where one mistake can define a lifetime of behavior, the ladybug stands as proof that even the most endearing forms can be walking warning signs. The monarch butterfly enters the scene on slow, deliberate wings, its flight buoyant rather than hurried, drifting above fields and roadsides as if carried by the landscape itself. Orange panels edged in black catch the light, veins etched sharply like stained glass held against the sky. Nothing about this butterfly suggests secrecy. It does not cling to shadows or dart away at the first sign of movement. Instead, it moves openly, crossing long distances in full view of birds, lizards, and other potential predators. This visibility is not a flaw. It is the point. From its earliest moments as a caterpillar, the monarch's life is shaped by a single plant, milkweed. The leaves are thick and bitter, oozing white sap when damaged. A chemical defense evolved to discourage herbivores. For most insects, milkweed is toxic. For the monarch caterpillar, it is both food and weapon. As the caterpillar feeds, it does not neutralize the plant's poisons, it stores them. Cardiac glycosides, compounds capable of disrupting heart function in vertebrates, are absorbed into the caterpillar's tissues and carried forward through metamorphosis. The transformation from crawling larva to winged adult does not erase this chemical inheritance. The butterfly emerges already armed. This act of chemical sequestration changes the monarch's role in the ecosystem. It is no longer just prey moving through open air, it is a walking warning, its body infused with toxins that make it dangerous to eat. The bright orange coloration, often admired for its beauty, serves a functional purpose long before humans ever noticed it. Against green vegetation and blue sky, the colors are impossible to miss. They announce presence and consequence in the same breath. Predators do not understand this instinctively. They learn it. A young bird encountering a monarch for the first time may see only movement and color, an opportunity rather than a threat. The attack is swift. The result is immediate regret. The butterfly tastes foul, inducing nausea and disorientation. Some birds vomit shortly after ingestion. Others survive the experience but remember it vividly. The sensation is not subtle enough to be ignored, yet not lethal enough to prevent learning. This balance is crucial. A dead predator learns nothing. A sick one remembers. That memory reshapes behavior. The bird begins to associate orange wings edged in black with discomfort. The next time a monarch drifts into view, the bird hesitates, then looks away. Over time, this avoidance becomes instinctive, passed not genetically but culturally through repeated experience. Predators that live longer accumulate these lessons, refining their foraging decisions and reducing wasted effort. The monarch benefits from this collective education, surviving encounters it never even knows were avoided. The butterfly's flight reinforces the message. Monarchs are not fast compared to many other butterflies. They glide and soar, relying on air currents and thermal lift rather than rapid wing beats. This unhurried movement would be dangerous for a palatable insect. For the monarch, it becomes another layer of honesty. There is no attempt to flee because flight is not the primary defense. The toxin already did the work. This strategy extends beyond individual survival. It shapes entire communities through mimicry. Other butterfly species, lacking the monarch's chemical defenses, have evolved to resemble its appearance. By copying the orange and black pattern, They tap into the predator's learned avoidance. This creates evolutionary pressure that radiates outward from the monarch, influencing color patterns and survival strategies across multiple species. Some mimics are imperfect, their colors slightly muted or patterns slightly altered, but close enough to benefit from the association. The effectiveness of the warning drives its replication. This mimicry only works because the monarch's signal is reliable. If predators repeatedly encountered orange butterflies that were edible, the system would collapse. The monarch pays the chemical cost to maintain the honesty of the signal, allowing others to borrow its power. In this way, its influence exceeds its numbers, shaping predator perception at a landscape scale. The monarch's dependence on milkweed ties its fate tightly to specific habitats. Fields, roadside verges, and open meadows where milkweed grows become both nursery and armory. The butterfly's migration, spanning vast distances across continents, carries this chemical legacy from one ecosystem to another. Individuals born in one region may die in another, but the warning signal remains consistent. A predator that learns the lesson in one place applies it everywhere the monarch appears. Migration adds another layer of complexity. Monarchs travel across temperature gradients, using sunlight and internal clocks to orient themselves over distances that dwarf their body size. Despite this vulnerability, they remain conspicuous throughout the journey. The toxin allows them to cross open spaces without hugging cover, conserving energy and maintaining steady progress. Their survival strategy scales from the leaf to the continent, from a single bite to an entire migratory corridor. At rest, the monarch continues to advertise. When perched, wings may be held closed, revealing muted browns and blacks. But at the slightest disturbance, they open again, flashing orange like a signal flare. This sudden display reinforces recognition, ensuring the predator's memory stays fresh. The butterfly does not rely on constant motion. It relies on clarity. There is a quiet efficiency in this system. The monarch does not need to fight, sting, or chase. It invests early, as a caterpillar, in acquiring chemical protection, then spends the rest of its life benefiting from that investment. The cost is paid up front. The reward is a lifetime of relative safety in open air. For humans, the monarch's beauty often overshadows its function. We see grace and color and assign fragility. In reality, those wings are a billboard, a biological announcement that danger and beauty are not opposites. They are partners. The butterfly's elegance does not contradict its toxicity, it depends on it. As the monarch drifts onward, crossing fields and roads without urgency, it leaves behind more than movement. It leaves behind information. Every predator that turns away carries that knowledge forward. Every mimic that survives reinforces the system. The landscape becomes a network of shared understanding, all traced back to a plant's bitterness and a caterpillar's ability to steal it. In the end, the monarch butterfly stands as one of nature's clearest demonstrations that visibility can be power. Its colors speak before its body is touched. Its presence reshapes behavior without confrontation. What appears delicate is, in fact, defended at a chemical level, broadcasting its status with confidence. This is beauty not as ornament, but as strategy. Beauty as a threat display. The owl butterfly rests in stillness so complete that it appears to be part of the forest floor itself. With wings closed, its body collapses into the visual language of decay. Muted browns, soft grays, irregular textures that mimic dead leaves pressed into damp soil. Veins trace patterns indistinguishable from plant fibers. Edges are uneven, worn-looking, as if time itself shaped them. In this posture, the butterfly does not announce its presence. It withdraws from attention, relying on resemblance rather than resistance. To a passing predator, it is not prey. It is background, but this illusion is conditional. It holds only as long as the encounter remains distant and unexamined. In the layered chaos of the forest understory, where light flickers and movement is constant, camouflage buys time, not safety. Eventually, something comes close enough to test the illusion. A bird hops nearer. A small reptile tilts its head. The distance collapses from meters to centimeters, and in that narrowing space, the owl butterfly changes tactics entirely. In a single sudden motion, The wings snap open. What was leaf becomes face. Two enormous eyes erupt into view, dark and round, rimmed with yellow and white, staring back with impossible intensity. The transformation is violent in its speed, the visual equivalent of a shout. There is no gradual reveal, no warning. One moment the predator sees nothing worth noticing. The next it is confronted with the unmistakable suggestion of something larger, something alert, something capable of fighting back. The owl butterfly does not attack. It does not need to. It lies. These eye spots are not decorative patterns. They are carefully engineered deceptions shaped by predator psychology. Many birds and reptiles are hardwired to recognize eyes, especially large, forward-facing ones, as signals of danger. Eyes imply awareness. Awareness implies response. In evolutionary terms, mistaking a predator for prey can be fatal, while mistaking prey for a predator usually costs only a moment of hesitation. Natural selection favors caution. The owl butterfly exploits that bias. The startle response it triggers is automatic. Muscles tense, movement halts. The predator freezes or recoils, its neural circuits briefly overwhelmed by conflicting information. What should have been an easy capture now demands reassessment. Is this insect actually something else? Is it watching? Is it dangerous? That pause may last only a fraction of a second, but in the economics of survival, fractions are everything. Those seconds are not wasted. As the predator hesitates, the butterfly acts. Its wings beat powerfully, lifting it off the forest floor in an erratic, unpredictable flight. It does not soar gracefully like a monarch or glide calmly between flowers. It bolts, zigzagging through shafts of light and shadow, aiming not for distance but for disruption. The goal is not to outrun, but to break pursuit. Once the predator's attention is fractured, the advantage shifts. This entire defense is built around the idea that escape does not require superiority, only opportunity. The owl butterfly cannot overpower its enemies. It cannot poison them or sting them. What it can do is interfere with their decision-making at exactly the right moment. Fear, even brief and uncertain, becomes a weapon. The effectiveness of this tactic lies in its timing. The eye spots are useless at long range. They only function when revealed suddenly, at close distance, when the predator has already committed to the approach. This ensures that the startle effect is maximized. A predator scanning from afar might ignore the display. A predator already leaning in has no such luxury. The sensory shock is immediate and immersive. Once airborne, the butterfly often closes its wings again mid-flight, collapsing back into leaf mimicry as soon as it lands. The transformation resets. If the predator follows, it must rediscover the prey from scratch, now without the advantage of surprise. Many give up, redirecting their attention to less confusing targets. This strategy reveals an important truth about predator-prey interactions. Survival is not always about strength, speed, or toxicity. It is often about information. The owl butterfly manipulates what predators think they are seeing, rewriting the narrative of the encounter in real time. For a brief instant, it is no longer prey in the predator's mental model. It is a potential threat. The eyes themselves do not need to be perfect. They only need to be convincing enough to trigger doubt. Studies of predator behavior show that even crude eye-like patterns can deter attacks as long as they are placed and revealed correctly. The owl butterfly refines this principle to an extreme. Its eye spots are large relative to its body, carefully positioned to align symmetrically when wings are open, creating the impression of a single forward-facing organism, rather than an insect with paired appendages. There is also an element of escalation built into the design. When the wings are fully spread, the butterfly appears much larger than it actually is. Size exaggeration compounds the effect of the eyes, pushing the predator's risk assessment further toward avoidance. The message is layered. I see you. I am bigger than expected, and this encounter is no longer simple. Importantly, this display does not need to work every time. It only needs to work often enough. Predators that experience repeated false alarms may become less cautious, but those individuals are more likely to make fatal mistakes with genuinely dangerous prey. Over time, populations maintain a balance of caution that the owl butterfly can reliably exploit. This tactic also shapes the butterfly's behavior beyond moments of attack. Owl butterflies are often crepuscular, active during low-light conditions at dawn and dusk. In these environments, vision is compromised, making sudden visual displays even more effective. Shadows are deeper, contrast sharper, and movement more startling. The butterfly's schedule amplifies its defense, aligning behavior with sensory vulnerability in its predators. Even thermoregulation plays a role. By basking with wings closed during cooler periods, the owl butterfly conserves heat while maintaining camouflage. When warmth allows for rapid muscle response, the butterfly is prepared to deploy its startle display at full effectiveness. The system is integrated, with physiology, behavior, and appearance reinforcing one another. There is a subtle irony in how this defense is perceived by humans. The eye spots are often described as beautiful or striking, admired as artistic features rather than tactical ones. In reality, they are tools forged in countless lethal encounters, refined by the failures of individuals that did not startle quickly enough or convincingly enough. What looks like art is, in fact, the residue of survival pressure. As the forest floor returns to stillness, the owl butterfly disappears once more into leaf litter, wings folded, eyes gone. The predator that hesitated moves on, perhaps without fully understanding why. No chase follows, no injury marks the encounter. Yet the outcome is decisive. The butterfly lives because fear intervened at the critical moment. In nature, violence is not the only currency of survival. Confusion, hesitation, and doubt can be just as powerful. The owl butterfly does not win by fighting. It wins by reframing reality long enough to escape it. In a world where every second can determine life or death, fear itself becomes a weapon, and the owl butterfly wields it with perfect timing. The Madagascar cockroach occupies space with an authority that feels out of proportion to its size. It does not dart for cover when disturbed. It does not vanish into cracks or scatter under sudden light. Instead, it holds its ground, body pressed low, legs splayed with mechanical confidence, exoskeleton thick and matte like burnished armor. In the dim understory of forest floors or the shadowed interiors of fallen logs, this insect feels less like prey and more like an obstacle, something built to endure rather than evade. The body itself tells that story immediately. Broad, flattened, and reinforced, the cockroach's exoskeleton is not a fragile shell, but a layered barricade. Each segment overlaps the next, distributing force and resisting compression. Predators that attempt to bite down encounter resistance rather than collapse. Mandibles scrape instead of puncture. Pressure spreads outward instead of inward. Even when grasped, the cockroach's form denies leverage, its smooth surfaces and rounded contours frustrating attempts to secure a killing grip. This is not speed-based survival, it is structural refusal. Then comes the sound. When threatened, the Madagascar cockroach produces a hiss that cuts through the ambient noise of its environment, sudden and unmistakable. It is not a byproduct of wings or stridulation. It is forced air, expelled violently through specialized breathing openings along the abdomen. The sound is created by compressing the body and driving air out under pressure, a deliberate act rather than an accidental one. In the insect world, where silence is often safety, noise becomes a weapon. The hiss functions on multiple levels. To predators, it is a warning, a sudden auditory signal that something is wrong. Many small predators rely on stealth and surprise. The hiss shatters that advantage, replacing certainty with doubt. What should have been a quiet capture becomes an encounter marked by resistance. The sound suggests size, aggression, and readiness to fight back. For predators conditioned to avoid unnecessary injury, this hesitation can be enough to break the attack. Within the species, the hiss carries additional meaning. It is used in dominance displays, territorial disputes, and mating competition. Males engage in physical contests, pushing and shoving one another while hissing loudly, each burst of sound reinforcing status and intent. The louder, more persistent hissing individual often gains the advantage, not through strength alone, but through intimidation. The sound communicates confidence and resilience, signaling that escalation will not be easy. This dual-purpose signaling reveals a deeper truth about the Madagascar cockroach. It is not passive. It does not simply endure danger. It confronts it with calculated aggression. The hiss is not an empty bluff, but a declaration backed by physical toughness and stubborn resistance. A predator that ignores the warning may still succeed, but it will not do so without effort. The reputation of cockroaches as filth survivors is often exaggerated and misunderstood. yet it points to real biological resilience. The Madagascar cockroach is remarkably tolerant of harsh conditions, capable of surviving low oxygen environments that would suffocate many other insects. Its respiratory system can operate under reduced oxygen levels, slowing metabolism and conserving energy until conditions improve. This adaptability allows it to persist in confined spaces, dense organic matter, and environments where air circulation is limited. This tolerance extends beyond respiration. The cockroach's physiology is built for scarcity and stress. It can endure long periods without food, drawing on internal reserves while minimizing energy expenditure. Its water needs are minimal, met largely through metabolic processes and moisture in its surroundings. These traits are not incidental. They are the product of evolutionary pressure in environments where resources fluctuate unpredictably, and survival favors those who can wait. In ecological terms, the Madagascar cockroach occupies a critical role as a decomposer. It feeds on decaying plant material, breaking down organic matter and recycling nutrients back into the soil. This work is unglamorous but essential, supporting the productivity of the ecosystem from the ground up. Its ability to thrive in conditions others avoid ensures that decay does not stall, that energy continues to flow even in the darkest, most neglected corners of the habitat. Predator interactions reinforce the cockroach's defensive strategy. Birds, mammals, and reptiles may attempt to feed on it, but few do so casually. The combination of thick armor, aggressive hissing, and physical resistance makes each encounter costly. A predator that succeeds gains a meal, but one that fails gains a lesson. Over time, this shapes behavior. Predators learn to prefer easier targets, leaving the cockroach largely unchallenged. Unlike venomous insects that rely on chemical deterrence, the Madagascar cockroach survives through confrontation and endurance. It does not poison its enemies. It wears them down psychologically and physically. The hiss startles. The armor resists. The refusal to flee prolongs the interaction until the predator decides the effort is not worth the reward. There is something deeply unsettling about this strategy. It violates expectations about vulnerability and fear. The cockroach does not behave like prey. It behaves like something that expects to survive. This confidence is not arrogance. It is the logical outcome of a body and physiology designed to persist under pressure. Even its movements reflect this mindset. The cockroach walks rather than runs, each step deliberate and grounded. When flipped onto its back, it rights itself quickly, leveraging powerful legs and body mass. When pinned, it struggles with relentless force, refusing to go still. This persistence can exhaust predators accustomed to quick victories. The hiss itself varies depending on context. A sudden loud burst signals immediate threat. A sustained hiss during confrontation communicates dominance. A repeated pattern during mating interactions conveys readiness and vigor. The sound becomes a language, one that operates across species boundaries, triggering instinctive reactions even in animals that have never encountered it before. As night deepens and the forest floor cools, the Madagascar cockroach continues its work, moving through leaf litter and fallen wood with quiet determination. It does not glow, sting, or dazzle. Its presence is felt through weight, sound, and refusal to break. In an ecosystem filled with delicate balances and fleeting lives, it represents a different path to survival. The horror humans often associate with cockroaches says more about our discomfort with resilience than about the insects themselves. The Madagascar cockroach thrives where others fail, not because it is dirty or chaotic, but because it is optimized for endurance. It does not need elegance or subtlety. It needs time, and time is exactly what it has. In the end, the Madagascar cockroach stands as a reminder that danger does not always come coated in bright colors or delivered through venom. Sometimes it comes armored, hissing, and impossible to ignore. It survives not by killing, but by refusing to be killed. It does not need venom to be a nightmare. The praying mantis waits in plain sight, suspended among stems and leaves with a stillness so complete it borders on absence. Its body aligns with the geometry of the plant, limbs angled to echo twigs, thorax elongated into a living extension of the branch it clings to. Sunlight slides across its green or brown surface without resistance, absorbed into camouflage refined by millions of failed ancestors. Nothing moves except the head, rotating slowly, independently, scanning the world with triangular eyes that see not scenery, but opportunity. This is not patience born of calm. It is patience sharpened into a weapon. The forelegs are folded beneath the head in a posture that humans have long misread as prayer. In reality, they are instruments of capture, raptorial arms engineered for one purpose alone. Each limb is lined with rows of sharp spines, jointed to snap shut with devastating precision. Muscles pack the segments densely, storing energy like a drawn bow. When the strike comes, it is not a swing or a grab, it is a release. High-speed footage reveals the truth that human eyes cannot follow. The arms extend, close, and retract in a blur faster than conscious reaction. The prey is pinned before it registers danger. Ambush defines the mantis's hunting strategy. Unlike predators that chase or search, the mantis allows the environment to deliver prey directly into its reach. This reduces energy expenditure and increases success rates. Insects moving through vegetation are already navigating a maze of stems and leaves, their attention fragmented by obstacles. The mantis exploits this cognitive load. It waits until prey crosses an invisible boundary, a precise spatial zone calculated by depth perception and motion tracking. Then the strike detonates. The speed appears supernatural because it violates expectation. Macro footage slows the moment down, revealing limbs unfolding with mechanical exactness, spines interlocking around struggling bodies, mandibles already opening before the arms have fully closed. The mantis does not hesitate or adjust mid-strike. There is no correction. The motion is pre-computed, executed as a single decisive action. Either it works, or the opportunity is lost. Evolution has favored those who never needed a second attempt. Once captured, the mantis wastes no time. Chewing begins immediately, often while the prey is still alive. There is no venom to immobilize, no sting to paralyze. Control comes from grip alone. The spines hold, the arms clamp tighter with every movement of the prey, converting struggle into self-restraint. This brutality is not excess, it is efficiency. Every second matters in a world where stolen meals are common and distraction invites retaliation. The mantis's vision underpins this precision. Large compound eyes provide a wide field of view, but it is stereoscopic depth perception that makes the strike possible. Few insects can judge distance with such accuracy. The mantis does this by subtle head movements, shifting perspective to triangulate range. This allows it to strike only when success is almost guaranteed. Misses are rare because mistakes are expensive, yet the mantis is not selective in a moral sense. It is opportunistic to the extreme. Anything that moves and fits within the grasp of those arms becomes a candidate. Flies, moths, bees, butterflies, grasshoppers, spiders, even small vertebrates fall victim. Frogs, lizards, and birds have all been recorded caught mid-movement, their size irrelevant once the arms close around the neck or wings. The mantis does not assess danger in advance, it tests it directly. This indiscriminate appetite leads to one of the most unsettling aspects of mantis behavior: cannibalism. When resources are scarce or proximity unavoidable, mantises turn on one another without hesitation. Mating interactions are especially dangerous. A female may consume the male before, during, or after copulation. The act is not symbolic or ritualistic. It is nutritional. The male becomes a protein source at the exact moment reproduction demands maximum energy. In some cases, decapitation does not even stop mating behavior, neural circuits continuing their function despite catastrophic loss. Biology proceeds without sentiment. Cannibalism is not a flaw in the system, it is part of it. For mantises, survival and reproduction are intertwined so tightly that one feeds the other directly. Opportunism governs every interaction. There are no allies, no protected categories. Size, familiarity, and even shared species identity offer no exemption. If it fits, it is food. This ruthless logic shapes how mantises interact with their environment. They do not defend territories or build nests. They do not form groups or cooperate. Their success depends on isolation, invisibility, and decisive violence. Even their molting process reflects vulnerability minimized through timing and placement, shedding old exoskeletons only when hidden deep within vegetation. Predators of mantises exist, but engaging one is always a risk. Birds may strike from above, reptiles from below, But the mantis does not surrender easily. The same arms that capture prey can be used defensively, lashing out at faces and eyes. Spines rake skin, bites follow. The insect's refusal to submit increases the cost of attack, sometimes enough to turn predators away. Again, survival emerges not from dominance, but from making interaction expensive. There is a particular discomfort humans feel watching mantises feed. Perhaps it is the resemblance of those arms to hands, or the way the insect seems to look directly at the camera while chewing. We recognize intent where none exists. The mantis is not cruel, it is literal. Movement triggers response. Proximity invites capture. There is no malice, only mechanics. This literalness is the mantis's greatest strength. It does not negotiate with its environment. It taxes it. Any organism that miscalculates distance, timing, or awareness pays immediately. The mantis does not chase mistakes. It waits for them. As light shifts and wind stirs the vegetation, the mantis remains motionless once more, arms folded, posture reset. To an untrained eye, it disappears again into leaf and stem. To the ecosystem, however, it remains a constant pressure, a silent audit of movement and carelessness. In nature, touching the wrong thing is never free. Sometimes the cost is pain, sometimes it is illness, and sometimes it is the sudden closure of spined arms moving faster than thought, reminding every living thing that curiosity carries a tax.